Good evening and welcome to our Women's Leadership event. We were all together here 7 months ago. We had the Lieutenant Governor, she was the acting governor actually that day. I believe it was March 4th or 5th. The room was packed and we had a marvelous evening. And several days later, the world as we know it changed drastically. But we're back. Our numbers are a little bit less, but I am so grateful for all of you to be here tonight to celebrate with us. So please, let's give each other a round of applause for just being here. When we left here that night, we really didn't know what the world had in store for us. And on March 11th, I guess we closed everything down. But we have survived, and we're looking for things to be bigger and better as we go forward. The Woodbridge Chamber is a strong chamber. We've been here since 1964, and God willing, we'll be here many more years. And that's because of the strong membership that we have, the strong board of directors, and people like you that come out and support the events that we hold. So thank you very much for doing that. A special thank you tonight to our speakers. For many of us, it's the first time that we're venturing out to an indoor event where we are within 6 feet of each other, taking off our masks to eat or drink. Sometimes we find it difficult to even recognize some of our lifelong friends because they're in masks and we're not used to that. But like in all things, we will survive this and come out better on the other side. Tonight we have 2 wonderful sponsors for this event. Macy Contractors, Anne Marie and her husband Bill and their family have always sponsored this event, and Northfield Bank, who has, again, always sponsored our event. Thank you just doesn't seem like enough for me to say, but I am truly grateful for you coming out tonight. So I would like to introduce our chairman of the Women's Leadership Committee, Anne Marie Macy, who has spearheaded this for probably 7 or 8 years since my tenure began, when I asked her to do this, and she said, "Karen, do you really think anyone will come?" And I said, well, let's give it a try. Maybe people will. And we started with a very small group, and we've grown to what we are today, and I'm sure we'll be bigger as we go forward. So enjoy the evening, and Anne Marie will take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I really can't say any more and any better than Karen just said now. So I just, from the bottom of my heart, this is my passion. It's one of my passions, but one of the most important. The fact that this was a thought in Karen's head, and I really was doubtful that 7 years ago, the picture of the world didn't look like this, where even 7 years ago, women weren't out front as much as they are today. And we can thank groups like this for educating us, because that's what we do. We educate you. And thank you to our gentleman that comes. All right, and I would love to ask, we always have a few, and they can learn from all the good things that we have to catch up, I would say, because we've been in the background for so long, and now I'm stepping out. I'm stepping out as you are into a man's world, and now it's our world. So ladies, I would love for the speakers to come take these chairs up here, and we're going to begin our program. The 3 speakers, could we have you together, please? So Mildred Scott was gracious enough to accept speaking here today, and we're very, very glad about that. She is serving her 4th term as sheriff of Middlesex County. Sheriff Scott's achievements include being the first female sheriff in the county and the first African-American sheriff in New Jersey. Join her as she shares her story of breaking through barriers and overcoming the challenges of success. Mildred?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me back there? Okay. Keep my mask on. I hope you don't mind if I keep it on. Being the sheriff of Middlesex County, I interact with quite a few people. My staff is 300 large, and every day I interact with so many of them, and I've got to be very careful in what I do. But I'd like to tell you about my journey. I grew up in Perth Amboy, not too far from here. You probably could have walked from here if you were on Buns Lane into Perth Amboy, which many times I have done. I went to Perth Amboy High School, and I had planned on going to college, and I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Every day coming out of school, there was a police officer standing on the 5 corners in Perth Amboy. Every day, he would cross us across the street, and I would have this conversation with him. He inspired me to think about the field of law enforcement. So when I went home to tell my father that I think I wanted to become a law enforcement officer, my dad said to me, there are no women in law enforcement. There are no women in law enforcement. And I said, Dad, I don't think I want to go to college. So he said to me, well then, you're going to get a job. So I got a job at Johnson & Johnson in New Brunswick. And then the civil service test came up, and I decided to apply to become a sheriff's officer. There were no women at that time in the field of law enforcement in the state of New Jersey. Well, I took the test, and the test required, it was a written. It required you to take a physical fitness, which was you had to do so many push-ups, so many sit-ups, and back then you called it broad jump. Well, as my stature is very small, when it came time for me to do the physical part of it, there were men in the room, and all eyes were on me. And they thought to themselves, now what does she think she's going to do? Well, I had a weapon that no one knew about, and that weapon was I grew up with 4 brothers. 4 brothers and 1 sister, and back then I was called a tomboy. My brothers are doing sit-ups and push-ups and running, and I was doing the same thing. I learned how to play stickball with a broom handle in the street. So when it came my time to do my physical fitness, I blew it out of the water. The next step was to take my psychological. So back then you took the written, you took the physical, and you took the psychological all in one night. You don't do that anymore. So I had my psychological, I passed my psychological. But I want to go back a little bit. I told you I was inspired by a police officer in Perth Amboy. However, my foundation was built by my parents. My dad, my mom, and my dad said to me, I don't care whatever you grow up to be, whatever you decide you want to do in life, you got to strive to be the best at it. No matter what you decide to do in life, you want to strive to be the best at it. My dad said to me, when I decided to go in the field of law enforcement, I told you there were no women in the field of law enforcement. You're going to face many challenges, which I did. I faced many challenges. First of all, I was a woman, and I was a minority. I was an African American. And I'll go a little bit into that too. But growing up in Perth Amboy, I grew up in low-income housing called Delaney Homes in Perth Amboy. Perth Amboy at that time where there was a large Jewish population, Hungarian population, Polish population. But growing up in Delaney Homes low-income housing, my friends were my friends. Some of them did not look like me, but I think growing up the way we grew up, side by side, sharing sugar, we need to go to somebody's house, we had this close bond. Perth Amboy High School was diverse at the time, not as diverse back then as it had grown over the years, but I became the class president of the high school. Alan Goldsmith, I was African American, Alan Goldsmith is Jewish. He was a VP, and I was a president. To this day, we are the best of friends. The best of friends. You know, he runs the Jewish Renaissance in Perth Amboy, and I'm on the board of the Jewish Renaissance. So I say this to you because there's so many challenges in life. But I think my foundation from my parents helped me to be where I am here today. So anyway, I passed the test, and I had my interview in the jail. Back then, it was a jail on Bayard Street in New Brunswick. It was an old jail building. I went into the jail. Back then, the jail came under the sheriff. The sheriff back then was Sheriff Jameson. I went into the jail. The doors clanged behind you. And I was standing up, and back then, you could smoke in the building. So Sheriff Jameson was smoking a cigar, and he's blowing the smoke in my face. So he said to me, "Why would a little girl like you want to come work in this cockroach-infested place?" And I said, "This is the job I want." That was my interview. He banged his fist on the desk. He said, "Okay, you got it." He said, "You got it." So that was my interview. The next step was to go to the police academy. Well, there were no women in the police academy. They didn't know what they were going to do with me. First of all, the weapon was about the size of my forearm. It was a 6-inch weapon. Going out in the range, there was no bathrooms out there. So if you had to go to the bathroom, the men would go into the woods. Well, it came my turn to go to the bathroom. Eventually, I had to go to the bathroom. And I said to them, "I'm not going in the woods. I'm not going in the woods." So he said to me, "Okay, then you can go up to the diner on Route 18. So I went to the diner on Route 18. But let me go back another step. Before it came time for us to go to police academy, back then you didn't wear pants, you wore skirts. You wore skirts. So they expected me to go through the police academy in a skirt. Well, when I went to the police academy, Sheriff Jameson had lost the election. Sheriff Flanagan had come in. Sheriff Flanagan had sent me to the academy. And I convinced Sheriff Flanagan to let me wear slacks going to the academy. I wore slacks going to the academy. My partner, my defensive partner, was a very large man. And I think they did it on purpose to maybe persuade me to leave. However, I have to say that the male officers, some of them treated me fine, and some of them did not. However, I was strong. Not only was I strong, I was mentally strong. I was mentally strong because I came from a good foundation. I came from a foundation with brothers that helped me become mentally strong. I was mentally strong because of my parents that instilled so much into me. So graduation time came, and you're graded on your book, your notebook, and everything was in handwriting. Everything was in handwriting. And then you had to take it home, and then you had to type it up on a typewriter. Well, I did that, and I had to go back another step because my husband had, after a while, I had gotten married, and my husband had been in the police academy like 3 years before I was there in the police academy. I compared my notebook to his. Mine was better. However, he got a better grade than I did. And I think they kind of held it against me, too, because I was a female. I think that because I was a female. So anyway, I graduated from the police academy, qualified on the range. I was deadly with the shotgun. I did the best I could with the 6-inch revolver, and I made it through the police academy. Well, by then, I was sent to the courts to work in the courts. Working in the courts, I learned so much about the field of law enforcement. However, I went back, and I was put back in a skirt. The next sheriff happened to come in was Sheriff DiMarino, Joseph DiMarino from Woodbridge Township. Joseph DiMarino came in, and I was still in a skirt. I said to him, how do you expect me to do what I have to do in a skirt? I had a conversation with him. Back then, I had a pocketbook. A weapon was inside our pocketbook. The pocketbook was built for a weapon. Convinced him to put me in slacks, convinced him to make sure that I could carry my weapon on my hip just like the male partners could too. So that opened the door for so many other women coming through. Not only in the sheriff's office, not only in the municipal police departments, but also in the state police. Coming up through my career, I had an opportunity to not only work with the sheriff's office, the local police, but I had an opportunity to work with the state police and the FBI. During my career, I had some high-profile trials in the Middlesex County Courthouse. It was the Roy riots. I don't know if anybody remembers those Roy riots. Had the big Roy riots. We had Joanne Chesmer, Assata Shakur. I guarded Joanne Chesmer, Assata Shakur. High-profile trials. I learned a lot. But my way of giving back is that I think that it opened the door for more women to follow me through that door. Well, eventually I rose up through the ranks in the sheriff's office. I became a sergeant, a lieutenant, a chief warrant officer, and then I became the chief. And I was the first female chief in Middlesex County. And I tell you this because we can do anything we want to do. However, we have to have a voice. And I think sometimes the pitfall for women are that you do not use your voice. You don't take a stance, and you have to do that. You have to make people aware that you have a voice and you have something to say. You could be in this room, and we just happen to have a gentleman here, and I thank you for being here. But most of the time, you're in a room, and they're mostly all males. There may be a couple. Thank you, sir. You may be a couple. You may be a couple of females in that room, and you say something, but sometimes it's not heard. But that same male partner there is saying something, and he's heard. But I think it's incumbent upon us as women to make sure that we're heard, that people listen to us. It's very important that we do that. And I did learn that coming up through the ranks. When I first became a sergeant, the male guys would say to me, what does she think she's going to do? How's she going to give me some rules to follow? I don't think I'm going to do that. But you got to make sure they do it. You have to make sure they do it. You have to certain times cross that line. And because we're women, sometimes we say things, and they take it a different way from where a man says it. So eventually I rose up to the ranks. And then in 1995, I'm telling you back there, 1995, I retired from the Middlesex County Sheriff's Office as the chief, and I retired because I had 3 granddaughters born that year. I decided that I had my years in, I was 27 years in, that I was going to retire to take care of my granddaughters. That was in 1995. In 1996, I ran for a council seat in Piscataway Township, and that's the town I live in. I was a council person there for 12 years. I decided in my 8th year as a council person that I was not going to run again because my husband at that time was retired, and I was going to spend some time with him. However, they convinced me to stay on another 4 years, and then the freeholder slot opened up. Camille Fernicola decided that she was stepping down from the freeholder board. And they asked me if I would consider it. And I didn't hesitate because there was not an African-American freeholder. And it's been talked about we need more diversity. So I decided, yes, I'm going to do it. And that was in 2008. And I happened to be on the same ballot is President Barack Obama. So that was in 2008. And then what happened, the sheriff's position opened up in 2010. And I was asked if I would be a sheriff's candidate. Didn't hesitate on that at all. No one had the background I had. I grew up there as an officer. But I knew there was going to be obstacles in the way. I was a woman, and I was an African American. Some people were going to vote for me because I was a woman, because I was African American, and then there were some people that weren't going to vote for me because of those same reasons. But the officers, the people that ran against me, and there was a fantastic captain of the state police. He ran against me, but he didn't have the same background I had. He had a very nice background, but he didn't have the background I had. I had the background where I grew up in the sheriff's office. I knew it from day one, how to work and how to function, how to make and run efficiently and effectively. So I ran for sheriff, and I became the first female sheriff in Middlesex County and the first African-American sheriff in the state of New Jersey. I have been blessed with good health. I have been blessed with officers that are willing to learn and to learn about law enforcement. Law enforcement is not easy. It's not easy. When you need help, you call on a law enforcement officer. But there are some people that look down on law enforcement officers also. And I'm going to tell you that there are good and bad in everything. There are good and bad in everything. I had to say that to you. I take my pride in myself as being a law enforcement officer. I take my pride in being a woman, but I take my pride in making sure I serve the public and I serve everybody with dignity and respect. And the officers that come in that I hire are the officers that were there before I got there. I tell them, you wear that badge, you carry that weapon, you have your handcuffs, you have all your tools. You have a lot of power. Law enforcement has an awful lot of power. But you have to make sure you're doing it for all the right reasons and that you treat everybody with dignity and respect. And when you find someone, if you find someone that's not doing that, then it's coming upon me as being a sheriff to make sure that I know there's something going on, that I pull that officer aside and we have a conversation. It's very important that we do that, because if we don't do that as law enforcement officers and somebody's doing something wrong and you let it go, it builds and builds and festers. And sometimes that's where we're at now. Some things have gone on so long. But I want to say this to you, and I want to leave this with you, because law enforcement is one of the best positions that anyone can have. It's just not a job, it's a profession. It's a profession that we take pride in. It's a profession that I know that I have the power to help someone else. And I do not want to abuse that power. I do not want to abuse that power. I do not want my officers to abuse that power. I want the younger generation to come up and learn the right way. And that's what it's all about. And it's about all of us getting along and communication. And that's the key too. It's communication. We have to communicate with each other. No matter what it is, it's communication, and it's an open door for the communication. It's not when you stop at my door and I say this is what it is and the shield goes down. It doesn't happen that way. Just like putting handcuffs on someone, just because they did something wrong does not mean that I should treat them without dignity and respect. Because they could be my mother, your sibling, your children, your grandchildren. So we want to make sure we treat everybody equally. But I want to thank you for having me here today. And I think I took a little more time that you allotted me. But thank you very much. And I am honored to have been part of you. I'm honored with Sheila Oliver and former Lieutenant Kim Godano also to have been guest speakers here. Thank you very much.
So, Mildred, you may be small in stature, but your story is larger than life. So thank you for today. Next up, we have my friend and one of our committee members, one of the original committee members of the Women's Leadership, who has so many layers to her. I don't know which layer she's going to tell you about, but they're all good. So Marta is, her day job anyway, is the Director of Planning and Development for Woodbridge Township. She will share her strategies over her 32-year career in economic and community development for a powerful productivity and tips for exceeding in a predominantly male field. Marta Lesky-Darden.
Okay, so previous to COVID, when we had scheduled this before, we were going to actually have a fireside chat. So I'm going to talk to you today like we're just sitting here talking amongst my girlfriends, and honestly, some of you are my very best girlfriends in the audience. And by the way, I don't think I've ever really shared like some of the anecdotes I'm just going to share about what I went through as I actually have index cards, if you can imagine, to do that. Like, that's how old head I am. Nobody uses index cards anymore. Okay, then there's others who share that with me. So yeah, I really have never shared many of these anecdotes, and I'll kind of explain, I'm going to, as I go through, I'm also going to give some tips to like sum it up as to what I think has served me best being a professional woman all these years. So I'm going to start by saying, look, I'm very grateful and very honored to be speaking to you all. I get asked to speak fairly much, a couple times a year at least, and I never step over how grateful I am that somebody thinks that I have something important to say and share with them, and the difference that that can make in the world. So thank you. I really appreciate that. So I'm also going to say that, the story that I have, I'm going to share with you my particular experience, but I'm very aware that my story isn't every woman's story. I kind of see it the way I've come to look at it over all these decades of generally being the only woman in the room up until recently, is that it's all, I'm standing on the shoulders of all the steps that every woman took in each of the previous generations. I know you all know we just left, we just lost Notorious RBG, and we know how much she did for women, for women's rights. Last month, that was just last week, last month we celebrated just 100 years of suffrage, of having the right to vote in the country. So we've really come a long way in a short period of time. And, we can go all the way back to the war when all the men were fighting. They were the soldiers, and Rosie the Riveter was taking over and performing those jobs. That was really a benchmark of beginning. But I know that for me, my mom was a great example because she was a claims examiner, like a quasi-judicial position with New Jersey, the state of New Jersey, unemployment back when women didn't really do that. That was all men. And just the way Mildred said, absolutely. I got my best beginning from my parents. I was raised like I could do anything that my brothers could do. We all did the same chores. We all learned the same stuff. So it was totally natural to me that I could pretty much do anything that a guy could do because I was the oldest, but we played football together, and I did everything that they did. So I didn't really think anything of that. then I got to graduate high school and go out in the world, and that was quite an eye-opener. So I went to college, and I went to Rutgers for 2 years, and then I transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, and in 3 additional years, I got my undergraduate and my master's degree. So that's the 5-year plan. Back then, for me, was the undergraduate and the master's degree. Now the 5-year plan is you're lucky if you get an undergraduate degree. But so at that time, not surprisingly, that's just how situations have shown up for me during the course of my education and career. I was one of 48 graduate students. I have a master's degree in city and regional planning. And so the first year that we started, there were 48 of us. Most of us, it was predominantly men. And most everybody, the average age was 27, and I was matriculating early into the graduate program, so I was 21. And, you know, if the median or the average age is 27, there were people much, much older than that. And so that was my first lesson in working in a group and working on projects together with people who were mostly twice my age, who were almost all male, and many of whom were going to school from another country. So in their country, in those countries, women were not expected to have a voice. So as you can imagine, everything did not go smoothly. And the lone female professor was singled out, I believe, to have the conversation with me about how I should be compassionate to this male person who was in my group who was from another country where they didn't treat women equally to men, and how I could make a difference. Well, all right, you know, I'm always up for making a difference, so I really took it well, but I never understood why I was the one that got singled out to be spoken to. They didn't try to have that conversation with him, no shock. So that was my beginning of seeing, okay, yeah, everything is not fair and equal. That's not how the world is working. So, I was out of the 48 that started in the first year. By the beginning of the second year, we were down to 24. And when it was time to graduate that year, out of the 24, there were only 3 of us who graduated. And of course, I was one of them because I wasn't spending any more time in that program. So I graduated in June, and I started working for Woodbridge in October, actually, yes. October 3rd, which is Saturday, I'll actually start my 33rd year of working with the town. Thank you. And by the way, you know, Woodbridge is my adopted home. I'm a huge Woodbridge fan. I always say Woodbridge is where I got my professional start, but I grew up professionally in Woodbridge. And I'm so very grateful to be able to be here and serve the town the way we do. And I'm so grateful that we have such progressive administrations, that there's still new stuff that we deal with all the time. We're still taking on new challenges. As you can imagine, I get bored very easily. And were it not for that every day is so diverse, I don't know that I would have stayed on as long as I have. But I looked, and so I don't know if you know very much really about what I do. So I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. And working for Woodbridge, what that means is I handle everything related to land and development. So that's approvals, it's permits, it's a host of different grants, affordable housing, zoning, planning, master planning, redevelopment, property maintenance, all that. Literally, if it's anything relating to land, I'm involved in it somehow within the town. And, you know, Woodbridge is a fairly large town, and we have a fairly larger spectrum budget than a lot of the smaller towns. So, you know, having somebody like me is really a luxury for the town. You have to have a budget to have somebody like that. Most towns don't have the capacity to have that many full-time employees. And obviously, if you don't have that many full-time employees, you get by the best you can with whatever you've got available to you. So that kind of comes out of me saying everything I have to say is that I looked around at other places where I could have gone, and nowhere else did I manage nearly as much as I managed with the town. You know, the chair of the Economic Development Corporation. I'm the administrative officer. That means I receive all the applications for development. I'm the affordable housing liaison with the state, which means not only do I administer our affordable housing trust fund, but I'm also in court when needed for that ongoing lawsuit that I'm sure you've heard bits and pieces of everywhere throughout the state. So, let's see, what else do I want to tell you? Oh, so, and with the licenses I have, I'm a licensed professional planner, that's what they call it in New Jersey, but I also have I'm accredited nationally through the American Institute of Certified Planners. That's a national designation. And what all that means is that in addition to everything that I've said to you, I get to raise my right hand and give testimony under the municipal land use law that governs the state of New Jersey, which is the most evolved zoning and planning law of any state in the country. I raise my right hand and do testimony for variances and site plans and subdivisions and all that good stuff. Master plan, anytime town adopts a master plan, the master plan is the forward-looking plan that every town by law is required to have, that generally looks forward into how you want your town to develop over the next 20 years. I also do a lot of redevelopment work, studies and reports and testimony related to that. So, and almost everything I do has a very, they're mostly time sensitive, they have a time limit, and it has a legal consequence for steps taken or not taken. So I say, you know, I'm kind of like serious as a heart attack, pretty much. So I started working with the town, as I was saying. I started in October 3rd of 1988. And so I was 23 years old. I had just graduated from my master's degree in Philadelphia a couple months before, and I started working for the town. So first off, now this is a whole lifetime ago, a world ago. The town and town administration doesn't look anything like this today. I was the next oldest person on staff was more than double my age. So most of the people I was working with were 50, 60, 70 years old. And I was the first woman that wasn't someone's assistant. So to say that nobody had any idea what to do with me is really an understatement. So I'm going to share a couple of anecdotes from my earlier bosses. So I started out as the planner, and so my boss, my direct boss, was the title that I hold now, which is Director of Planning and Development. So my first boss said to me a couple months after he hired me, so when he hired me it was 88, and that was right on a boom in the market. So when times are good and everybody's cooking with gas, nobody wants to work for a town. So the position that I filled was one that I was certain several months later, if he knew who I was when he hired me, like the kind of person I was, he would never have hired me. But the job had been vacant for like 6 months, so he was desperate because when he didn't have that planner person supporting him, he was doing all the work himself, and who would want to do that? So he actually said to me at one point, he said, you know, I hired this shy, quiet young woman who wore bobby socks. And then, like, within months, I find out that you're this outgoing, you know, I always had a voice. It's how I grew up. And he's like, you're like two totally different people. That's how I knew he would never have hired me if he could have avoided it, because he hired who he thought he hired, but that really was only part of me. That wasn't really me, the full me. So, yeah, and I started at the time making $25,000 a year. And I was the planner, and I was the only woman at back then it was literally at every meeting. There would be a room full of men, usually, you know, it depends on the size of the development, but if it's a larger development, you're talking about 12 or 15 guys. I would go to board meetings. I would be the planning board and the zoning board, I would be the only woman there, except for, at that point, I think there was one token woman on each board. And so there would be two of us. Well, okay, that's 100% uptick in numbers. That's great. It's a 100% increase. But literally, always the only woman. There was one time early on when it got back to me. That's another thing. So I would hear comments, but none of the comments that were made were ever made to my face. So, I remember one particular incident where everybody always wants a CO, and you know, when any person who has a house or any entity needs a CO, like they really need that document. You know, it's for a closing, they need it for financing, they've made promises to tenants that, you know, they're set to move, they really, really need that. And so we had a meeting about all of the reasons why this particular site wasn't going to be able to get the CO that they very, very much wanted and needed. And I was the only woman in the room. And, you know, everyone else was quiet, and I spoke, and I told them what they needed to do in accordance with the plan that they had approved. And so afterward, I just remembered this morning, because I was sitting down to make notes to share with you the few anecdotes that I could share in the time we had. And within a day, I heard, and I don't even remember from whom, but somebody who was in the meeting, that afterward the men had had a conversation and they wanted to know, the entity that wanted the CO, well, if we sent her roses, do you think that would make a difference? And literally, I'm telling you, I don't even remember half of what happened to me in those really early years, because, and that's one of the tips that I have, which is I choose not to live out of that kind of negativity. I really think I use that to get to where I am today. So then, you know, when when mayors change, administrations change, and so I now had a different director of planning and development. And the director of planning and development standardly has the planning license because what you're doing is a lot of planning work. Well, we hired someone to be the director after I was there. I might have been there, yeah, I think I was there about 4 years. And we hired someone who didn't have a planning license. So that meant, guess who was going to end up doing all that planning work? Which I'm fine with. I'm always a yes. That's another one of my tips. I'm always a yes, whatever it takes. I'll do whatever it takes, whatever needs to get done. I'm a yes, I can do it. That's how I roll. So I think this boss was even more intimidated than the previous boss. The previous boss was intimidated because people just kind of gravitated towards me because in points I could be outgoing and I kind of am who I am. So to him, I was just suddenly this outgoing person that wasn't this shy young woman who wore bobby socks. So I'm still a young planner. I'm working for the town for several years, the way I told you. And so now it's time for me to go have the exam to become licensed. You have to work a certain number of years, and then you're eligible to take the exam to be licensed. So he was still new at that point. There a couple of months, and so I was set to take the exam over the weekend in a couple of days. And he said to me, right before I took the exam, he says, well, if you don't pass the exam, we'll just fire you and get somebody who has the license. So needless to say, I passed the exam despite all of his encouragement, actually discouragement. And so that actually never came to fruition. So I continued on working as a planner with this boss being a non-planner. He was there for several years and then decided to move on. And at that point, I became the deputy director, and we hired another gentleman who wasn't a planner. He stayed on only for a year this time. It wasn't really for him. It wasn't something he had done previously, and he decided to take a detour and go into teaching. So at that point, I was made the director, which was still we're still in, so that's only less than 10 years into my tenure with the town. And so I was hired as the director, making less than half of what the previous directors, who were men, were making. And I was only given a $5,000 raise to go from being the deputy director to being the director. So I'm not really sure whether that was just another vote of lack of confidence, or because I was already doing the job for so many years through the previous directors who weren't planners, that it just wasn't warranted for more than that. But that was absolutely the case. I was hired making less than half of what my male counterparts had been making in the same job, when they had me as the backup. I had no backup. When they had me as the backup, they were making twice as much in the position. So, okay, so fast forward, because now then I'm director, and that is, last month I started my 24th year as director. Thank you. And that, like I said in the beginning, life is totally different now. It is a completely different world 30 years later than what it was to be a woman working in any professional position today versus then. And so now fast forward to, we have a very progressive mayor at this point who's been mayor for 14 years. And so under Mayor McCormick, we have, as you know, we have a chief of staff and a head of the redevelopment agency. That's a woman. He reappointed me as the director of planning. We have a deputy director of the redevelopment agency who's a woman. So he has, I think he feels very smartly, and I wouldn't disagree, surrounded himself primarily right at the heart of what I know is his most favorite thing, and he said it to you before, economic development and moving the town forward is his absolutely favorite thing, and that's what we all do with him. So thank goodness we came out of the dark ages. We all lived to tell about it, and here we are. Thank you. So I'm just going to summarize, in summary, conclude by giving you a couple of tips. And I'm also going to claim that man. He's my husband, Elroy, if you don't know. And that's how, that's how it is he came to be here. Well, in my case, it is. I mean, I could say he's here because I told him he needed to be, but in truth, he's so supportive. And that is definitely a tip, having people in your corner. I do have a core group of friends at this point, and my husband, who are chiefly in my corner, and I certainly did not have that when I started working with the town. So I'm very thankful and appreciative for that. Okay, so just by way of summary, what's worked very well for me professionally, and I think this is pretty much across the board, not just in a male-dominated field, is consistency. So showing up. Using your voice, as Mildred said, but also just showing up. That's half the battle. Having a purpose or a mission. Throughout my career here, I have been very excited by getting to see the difference that the work we do makes for people, just in terms of whether we're master planning, looking 20 years into the future of how we want the town to be laid out and what uses we want to have where. Right now, we're working on the downtown, as many of you know, I know you're aware of, kind of revolutionizing that to ensure the next 100 years of vibrancy in our downtown. And that, I could just say to you professionally, thrills me to no end. So you've heard it before, and I think it's Winston Churchill who said it, never, ever, ever give up. If you want to do something, whether it be a job or an avocation or a step you want to take, and you know you can do it, just don't give up. As I said before, always be a yes. In my early years, when I couldn't speak to the men in charge, I spoke to the women in all the offices who, as we generally know, are the ones who not only know everything, but were doing most of the work anyway. And that's how I managed to learn. I learned everything that I could, and that's the way that I managed to do it. As Mildred said, I would say communicate to the extent of over-communicate. Whenever I'm trying to help somebody get that ever-elusive CO that they need yesterday, I'm on phone, we're back and forth in email many times. As many times as it needs to be to get that job done for them. Yes, measure your own achievement. I never measured, not only because I knew it, I never measured any achievement by anything external. I didn't expect praise or congratulations, not least of which because especially early on, I didn't really get any, but I had my own goals inside of what I could fulfill on and what I could achieve for the town. And also, as Mildred said, respect. You know, to this day, I still wear a jacket and usually a dress to work almost exclusively. I've done that since I started 30 years ago. Back then, it was much more the norm. Now it's really not, but I do that out of respect for the people I work with and out of respect for the people that I serve. And I consider everybody that we help every day, anybody who calls and has a complaint, I consider them all my clients and my customers. And I'm way big in customer service. So I'm always happy when anybody calls me with a problem, even if I had nothing to do with it, to just say, I'm sorry, and let's see what we can do to get that resolved for you. And I find that saying I'm sorry, because I know in customer service, nobody takes any ownership anymore. You know, whether you're calling the customer service line out of Mumbai or what have you, nobody takes any responsibility. You can't really communicate with a person. You don't get a human being, and those words would never be spoken. And I'm the first one to say that that's easy, and I find that that's comforting to people because they don't ever get to hear that. As I said before, you know, I really don't live out of the past in terms of, yes, whatever transpired, that all happened, but I don't live out of that. I choose to live out of the difference that I can make for people and the goals that we're focused on in moving the town into the future. So yeah, I don't live out of the negativity, and forgiveness is the biggest gift that you can give yourself. Because when I'm stuck on what I say someone else did, I'm the one drinking the poison. They're just going about their business. So I really, you know, God bless, move on. Life is too short. It really, really, really is. And I'm too busy. So I don't know what time we're at, but I'm going to apologize to you up front. I don't think I can stay for a question and answer period because, as Anne Marie alluded to, I am part of the production at APAC for the next week, which is my big gay Italian midlife crisis. And so that's going to be 8 shows starting tonight. So I jumped from rehearsal to come here to be with all you lovely people, and then I have to get back to get mic'd and costumed up for an 8 o'clock curtain call. So. So that is a new blessing, a relatively new blessing. I was drafted by Anthony Wilkinson, who some of you may know is the executive director of the Avenel Performing Arts Center, to be part of his cast when he performs his plays at the Arts Center. So again, I feel just so grateful and blessed to be a part of that. And I so very much thank you for your time and listening to me and all that I could share with you. Thank you.
So, Marta, all I have to say is You've come a long way, baby. But I also do want to tell you that Miss Humility over here did not tell you. Marta has recently been chosen as one of the top 25 leading women entrepreneurs of 2020 out of over 500 people. And there will be a virtual October 6th? Everything's virtual today, and there's a virtual awards ceremony. Did you do a videotape? Yeah, a video. She's going to be a star again. So let's give Marta one more hand. Thank you, Marta. So we have the pleasure of, and I hope the microphone does not die. As CEO of Dress for Success, Central New Jersey, and a woman business owner, Melissa pays it forward every day to inspire and help women. Learn how Melissa combines her skills as an entrepreneur to mentor women and men for a better future. Let's give Melissa a hand.
Thank you very much for having me. So I really love women conferences so much, and I've spoken at many different conferences, and usually the audience is our clients or students. So I'm blessed to be at the Metro Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank Karen Barnes, if you can give her a round of applause for everything that she does for women. Karen actually sits on the board of directors of Dress for Success, Central New Jersey. She is a friend. She is just a trailblazer with all she does for the chamber and bringing businesses together. So again, I'm really, really glad to be here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about my career and about the empowerment of women and how these programs have impacted the community in general. My career started, I guess 20 years ago, owning a woman-owned staffing agency in the state of New Jersey. And I was quite young when I opened it up and really didn't have any money to start my business. And I had this really kind of broken down townhouse where I took a little loan against it to open up a staffing agency in Princeton with very high rent. And people thought I was crazy. They said, "You can barely afford this rent." And I said, "I'm going to get some really big accounts as a woman-owned business, and I'm going to make it." I opened up my business on 9/11. I signed the paperwork when the world was sleeping and people said nobody is going to get hired. It's just a very terrible time to start a business. I said, I'm still going to move forward with my business. I know that people are going to see the value in what I can do, and I'm going to place great women and men in businesses. When we talk about the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm going to go back to my business, a big start of what I've done over the years is I was always very philanthropic, even when I had my business. I was a part of the Princeton Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I was the chairman of their foundation. And at that particular time, when I was starting my business, they had sold a business, and we decided that there was $500,000 proceeds from that building. What were we going to do with that money at the Princeton Mercer Chamber of Commerce? We decided that we were going to put that money in the Princeton Area Community Foundation, which some of you may be aware of. They're here in Middlesex. And we were going to safeguard that to give that money out to nonprofits in the community in Central New Jersey for years to come, to give that money to other charities. So that's my background with the Chamber of Commerce and running foundations. But back to my business. I ran it for 18 years. And I had many educated clients coming in to look for jobs. And I had many people who came to me through my agency in Princeton that just lived 3 miles down the road in Trenton that did not have a resume, they did not have a mentor, they did not have the wherewithal to even get the jobs that were 3 miles down the road from them. So running my business, I really took an invested interest in the community and the nonprofits that were referring women to my agency. Yes, I could get a very highly educated person a job at Princeton University or at Amazon or at some of the big corporations or banks in the area, but it was very difficult to get the person that came in that didn't have a computer at their house, the person that came in that didn't have a mother that spoke English that was able to help them get that job or do that resume or even communicate that with them. And that became a really soft spot for me. So during the day, I'd run my agency and I'd place really skilled people in jobs because that's what I needed to do, right? Everybody wanted the best employee. They wanted the most qualified employee. And then at night, I wrote resumes for the people that didn't have their resumes. And I would be up all night trying to get those resumes together for people on my own time to be able to help them get those jobs. During that time, I found myself, of course, being involved in workforce development because getting people jobs is what I'm all about. I started working with Eden Autism Services, and I was their chairman of their Human Resource Committee, and I got involved with workforce development there, which was helping the guys at Eden and gals be able to learn life skills to be able to volunteer or enter the workforce. Wawa, who's a funder of mine now, was such a big contributor to getting our guys at Eden and Enable jobs where they could do repetition and they could feel like they were getting a paycheck and they were contributing citizens in this great community. So all of these boards that I sat on when I was supposed to be running my very prestigious agency in Princeton led me to realize that there's so much more than just making money. At one point I was billing so much I had probably maybe 600 to 700 people out working a week. And I had a staff of probably 10 or 12 people in Carnegie Center, which was, very beautiful and just a great place to be. But my passion started changing as I worked with these other groups and did some fundraising for them. I had a charity that called me, and it was Central New Jersey. At the time it was, we're running out here of the battery. Can you hear me? Oh.
Testing. Try this one.
So, can you hear me now? Yeah. Perfect. So I got the call from Dress for Success, Mercer County, and they said, we need a bookkeeper from your agency. Dress for Success, Mercer County is closed. We didn't have the funding, and we just need someone to kind of come in and see if we can make a go of it. But we've been closed for about 8 to 9 weeks. And I said, Dress for Success, Mercer County is closed. I was one of their lunch speakers. I donated all my beautiful clothes there. How could this be? What a great mission they have. How could they close? So I placed the bookkeeper there, and I got a little curious myself to see what was going on. So of course I went to their site in Lawrence to check it out, and I saw clothes piled up to the ceiling. So many community members thought this was such a great cause. Why were they closing? Well, they needed much more. I mean, it all starts with the suit, and that's what Dress for Success Mercer County did, is they gave underserved women in the community suits and clothing to be able to go on a job interview. But it's so much more than that. It is the skills, it's the tools, and it's the mentors, and it's getting programming to teach them how to be able to get those jobs. Not just the look on the outside, but do you have the resume? Do you have the network of people that are going to help you? Do you have access to human resource specialists in the area? Do you have a computer at home where you can have that beautiful cover letter? And do you have the skills to be able to follow up and land that job? Do you know your transferable skills? Do you know your worth? And a lot of people don't know their worth. A lot of women do not know how worthy they are of these great jobs. And you see a job description on one of these boards and you say, wow, that's such a big description. I could never do that. Well, you know what the men are doing? They're saying, guess what? I can do that job. I don't care if I don't have it on my resume. I'm just going to add that right in there. So the women's confidence in building that up in the women that we see is so crucial to their success. So one thing led to the next, and I told Dress for Success Board, which they were so engaged with the mission and such hardworking people, that I would give them an executive director at no charge through my agency. But one thing led to the next, and they said they don't want any of the people that I gave them. They wanted me to take the job. So 5 years ago, I took over Dress for Success Mercer County, and we started these workforce development programs. What I saw in my agency was the gaps between people that were coming to me that couldn't get the jobs and the people that were highly educated and had a support and had a network and had connections in the community. So I wrote 6 workforce development programs that I launched in the community at Dress for Success, and I'll just name a couple of them. One was a Latino empowerment program, so it's helping girls and women be able to get mentors in the community so that they could get those jobs. You know, we meet them where they are, so some of the women that were older, they were immigrants and they could get more cleaning jobs, but some of the younger graduates and high school students that were graduating could get jobs if they just knew the outlets and if they just had someone to give them the insight to what's going on in the job market. And that's what we did. We wrote a 6-week Latino empowerment program that we took mobile to all of the charities in the area. And we started out just doing it in Mercer County. And from there, first day on the job, when I started at Dress for Success, Mercer County, there was an envelope that came, and I thought, who's giving me an envelope? And I had flowers there. And I opened the envelope, and it was a check for $25,000 from a funder. And it was my first check to be able to start a new program and hire somebody, because like I said, there was nobody working there. And I hired a program manager part-time with this $25,000 check, and also all the materials to start this program, and we launched it in the community within a couple weeks. But what was important about that moment is I left a really, really important job that I was doing for 18 years to volunteer at a charity where, you know, obviously I wasn't getting paid a lot. They were closed for a little while, but my passion for helping people and knowing that because I had the drive to help other women, that I could take this off to the next level. But getting a check from, and I can say who it is because many of you may know it, from Princeton Area Community Foundation, which is a really, really big foundation, to give me that $25,000 validated that they believed that I could make an impact in the community and that I was going to be helping so many women. And I said to the chairman of that board, can't you just go back to your board and ask them if they'll give me money? Because they didn't know I was working here when they rejected us before. And that's exactly what they did. So from there, we help thousands of women every year. We have these 6 programs. We went from being in one county, which was Mercer County, and I expanded all the programming into 6 new counties, Middlesex being one of the biggest counties that we work in with the one-stop. So thank you, Middlesex County, and for all you do, give yourself a round of applause. I only got to talk to the people at my table, but I have Northfield Bank at my table who really did fund our financial literacy program in the beginning. So I thank you for your dedication to our women and for what you do. So Northfield, give them a round of applause for being the sponsor today, but also for supporting the program. I think the bottom line to what I do is I had an agency and I really never worked in a man's world. I was always the person in charge. I think I'm an in-charge type of person. So after graduating, I took that little loan against my townhouse and I opened up my own agency and I hired all women and I sit on a lot of different boards within the community and I work with a lot of men there, but I always say, well, if I'm gonna come onto the board, I either have to be the vice chair of the board or the chair because I like to be in charge. I don't take direction very well from other people. I am easy to get along with, but as Karen knows on my board, I try to let everybody on the board speak, but I am definitely an in-charge type of person. And for me, I'm here to inspire other women. I feel that everything I've learned in my life that I can give to our women in the program, and I can write programs that my managers and other people feel inspired to facilitate across the whole entire state. Like I said, we're across the state of New Jersey now, and we serve thousands of women every year. And I think this year alone, we have 5,000 services. And when I started 5 years ago, we were seeing, 500 to 700 people a week. So we've really, really expanded. Last year alone, our outcomes of people getting jobs was like 87%. And we didn't even have workforce development programs prior to me starting. So I'm really, really proud of that number. I sort of took my experience in my staffing agency and knowing all of the hiring managers throughout the state. And instead of making money by placing them through my temp agency, I placed them at no charge. A really big funder of mine and somebody that's really involved with hiring our women is New Jersey Manufacturers, out there. And they gave me my first break when I was a woman-owned staffing agency. I kept calling HR and saying, I can place temps at your agencies, I'm a woman-owned, staffing agency. And I kept calling her. The same woman, when I went to Dress for Success Mercer County, started hiring some of our women at no cost. And I would call and say, do you have any openings for this particular person? She really needs the opportunity to get started. And there's a lot of people in the community that have rallied around me, have given me a chance and the opportunity to work with Dress for Success and support us. We're a $500,000 charity now. We're growing, and we look for volunteers. It's basically a volunteer-based organization. 95%, are women. We have Joe Morris here, who's on our board. He's one of the only men. We let him on there. So we're really excited about that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our professional women's group. We have the one program that is standing that's really strong with Dress for Success. If people get suitings, if they get a job, they can go into a professional women's group network where it's a feeder for all of the programs. So if you're in financial literacy and you get a job and you become a contributing citizen, you go into a nightly networking group where women talk about their stories about how to get that next raise, how to deal with a difficult boss, how to become a leader in your own community. We teach them how to become a success ambassador, which means you look at the women that are coming through Dress for Success and you suit them and you let them know your story, that I was in your shoes just 6 months ago and look where I am. There is hope for you. There's hope for a better future for you as a woman. So I always feel that never let another woman fall behind. I mean, there's enough room for everyone, and I think that Dress for Success definitely resonates with that message, that women empowering women to be able to do the best things that they can do in life. Definitely about the equal pay for women is something that I speak about throughout the state. When I was on the Board of Eden Autism Services, I did a salary survey, and every woman that was underpaid there did get a raise, and that's something I'm really passionate about, and I speak on a regular basis about equal pay for women, and that's not what it's about today, but we all need to know our worth, and we all need to look at those jobs and say, I can do that, and I can conquer that, and I'm confident that I'm gonna be the best person for that job. They have that saying, fake it till you make it, and I always say, fake it till you become it, because you really can work hard at any job and become the best, and years later inspire other people to do the same. So I want to talk a little bit about Carmen, who's sitting to my left. Carmen is a phenomenal woman. She is a part of our Dress for Success network. When I came to Dress for Success, Carmen was a client. She was a member of the professional women's group, and I saw such a sparkle in her eye when I met her. She's so compassionate, and everybody in that particular group, again, they all graduate from all the programs. They go into this networking group, looked up to Carmen. And in that group, everybody's like, Carmen, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What should I do about this job? And she's mentoring all the people. Even one day I realized she was driving in, and all of a sudden all these people get out of her car. So she's picking up all of the women. I'm like, wait, who are all these people? She goes, oh, I run around and pick up all the women for the professional women's group. I'm like, you do? How long has this been going on? So I saw something in her that was so spectacular, and I said, Carmen, I really want you to take a lead role with Dress for Success, and I want you to run this network. And she's like, I can't run this network. What do you mean? I said, you have to know your worth. You're so inspiring to everyone. She was already doing the job. She has 3 beautiful children. She is such an inspiration. I want her to come up and tell you a little bit about her beginnings and what Dress for Success has done for her. So, Carmen, take it away.
Good evening. I realize I'm not on the agenda, so I promise I won't hold you long. But just a tip before you bring somebody up, say something nice. Don't make them cry before you give them the microphone. But so I'll just be brief. But so 5 years you were at Dress for Success. I was actually there for 11, right? So 6 years before Melissa came. It was an excellent program, but there was only one program. Then I think I was going to Dress for Success, and then there was a pilot program called Professional Women's Group, and I attended, and I had been going. I was getting so much from the program. I think one year they actually gave me a certificate at the holiday dinner. They gave me a certificate for perfect attendance. So I was like, I didn't even realize I never missed a meeting, but I was just looking to grow as a person and as a woman. So I came to the program, actually I'm from New Jersey, but when I got married, my husband had this great idea to move to Atlanta, right? So we moved to Atlanta. I eventually got a great job. I was a director in training at a school. I was in education. That's what I went to college for. So it was going great. Well, then divorce happens, right? Then reality happens. So me and the kids, we come driving, trucking back up to New Jersey. My car ended up, I turned it in. They said it was a repoed. That's not fair, right? So stuff was just like just disappearing in my life. And, it was just really difficult, right? But I have to always smile. As a woman, we have to smile. We have children that are looking up to us, right? So I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was also, before I left, I was also a counselor at a youth shelter, which I still do today in addition to my full-time job. But I still am a counselor there. So anyway, I'm thinking all these kids in the community, my own children at home, there's no way that I could look down at myself. No one knew, even if I was smiling, no one knew really how I was feeling on the inside. I'm like, I'm falling apart. Like I'm out here trying to look cute, but I can't get a job, that's gonna feed, 2 boys and a girl here. So anywho, just fast forward, I promise. I said I wasn't gonna keep you, I promise I won't. So we come back up here, then I had to apply for assistance, I think. So my pride was like, oh my God, like I'm not prideful right now, but I was at the time. I was just like, I'm applying for assistance, oh my God, my life is over, I have a college degree. So I was introduced to Dress for Success. I started going to the program. I got into the professional women's group. We meet monthly. They bring a speaker in. It was about all of those pillars. It was about financial wellness. It was about mental wellness. It was about women's wellness. It was about just all these topics, all these things with jobs. My confidence started to come up. Like, I was just like, okay, I can do it. Let me just get it together. I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do. If I need to type something, write something, build something, whatever. So things started to happen for me. I started, getting a job or whatever the case may be. So let me just fast forward to when Melissa came, and then all the other programs came, right? So just looking at how Melissa was operating, it just kind of just gave me even more confidence that I could just do whatever I needed to do, right? So I started speaking up for myself, like, okay, get that little drive going. And I have to say, honestly, I'm a little proud of myself. I didn't take the job, but there were 3 different jobs that I interviewed at where they were like, oh, we realized we didn't want you for this position, whatever, someone else took it, but we'll create a position for you. That happened 3 times, right? So then I was just like, look at me. Look at me using all the skills that I learned from Dress for Success every month. And I said, okay. And so I made it my business that every month, whatever I learned that month, I definitely went to apply it immediately, right? So I went to apply it immediately, and then things were just happening, right? So then I got a full-time job. So now I'm actually a senior fiscal analyst at the Department of Transportation. So I'm excited about that. Thank you. I won't get into my whole history, but so I'm excited about that. The whole working with difficult coworkers, the whole speaking up for yourself and asking for what you want. Let me tell you, I ask for anything I want. Sometimes I've gotten it, sometimes I haven't. But yeah, it was Dress for Success is just an amazing program, right? So I don't want to reinvent or reiterate every single thing that Melissa's already said, but I did want you to know that I definitely, I'm a product of what that program is. And I'm happy to say that Melissa came to me and called me in the office and asked me to lead the program. And I was like, I don't think I could do that. I'm sitting over here trying to get myself together. But I didn't recognize all those things that I was doing. I just was doing it. So I didn't really realize it. And then the women still call me. They call me outside of the program. And I just love what I do for them. And so I was just like, okay. I said I'll think about it, but it didn't take long for me to say that I would just go ahead and lead that program. So I'm really excited to be doing it for Dress for Success. They've done so much for me that I was looking for an opportunity to give back, right? And so if that's the way that I could do it, I'm more than happy to do it. I love the smiles on the faces of the women in the program. We have one woman that when it's time to leave that night, and we'll say, okay, good night, drive safe, all that I'm taking back. I'm going to take this trash out, come get in my car, and we say bye, and then she'll say, no, it's not goodbye. It's I'll see you in 29 days. Because she looks forward to coming to it. And even in this day of COVID, we haven't actually missed a beat. During this time of COVID, I learned how to use Zoom, right? And so we started Zooming. So now our meetings are through Zoom. And the women I was like, okay, well, how am I going to do it? First of all, so I started calling the women, right? They're diverse. It's a very diverse group in age, economic, racial background. It's a very diverse group. So I'm like, okay, Zoom. I know for a fact, I know these women like the back of my hand. I know some of these women are not going to be able to get on Zoom, right? So I started calling them beforehand. Hey, we're going to be Zooming. Just so you know, this is what we're going to do. Download this app. If you need me to come to your house, I'll download the app for you. On this day and on this time, this is what we're going to do. And so our very first Zoom meeting, it was a beautiful thing to see that every woman that had come consistently in the program was actually on Zoom. That was good. And so I said, now you put this in your bag, right? This is something else that you know how to do, and that's what we're all about. So I'm just grateful for the program. I'm definitely grateful for Melissa, and to hear about your entrepreneurial skills. I'm always listening, and so I was just telling her at the table, I actually have started a business, but I'm on a so ground level. But I'm a certified doula now, so I'm doing childbirth education classes, yes. So I'm doing childbirth education classes, and I want to learn more from Dress for Sex, PWG. I want to learn more about being a business owner and learning to grow my doula business. So thank you so much.
And I just want to say thank you, Carmen. That's what we all can do as women. We can always inspire people on the jobs, people that we know by volunteering. It's really key to give back to other women and be an inspiration. I know a lot of times women are worried about their job and somebody kind of, getting to that same level. If you get someone to that same level, you're moving up to that next level because you mentored that person, you groomed them, and you're going up first because the passion that you gave for that person. So let's inspire other women to get promotions, to get to the next level, and make sure that each and every day that we look out for other people so that they can become business owners and successes. Carmen's a big part of it, but so many women that she's touching in the program and that we're still touching every day have their own businesses, have gotten those promotions, and are becoming leaders in the community and community advocates, which is so important to all of us. So thank you all for listening and for inspiring, and go out and do good work together.
Thank you. Melissa, can you hear me? It seems like there's a common thread in all three of the people, the speakers, that we need as women to find our voice. So, Melissa, I have a feeling that you invented the voice from all the things that you have done. You inspire us, and thank you for that. And thank you for coming tonight. And Carmen, you really are very cute. And I love your story. So ladies, we have a little prize for you tonight. I want to thank you all for coming out in the COVID and being one of this is my first time out in public. I don't know about the rest of you, so give yourself a hand. Give yourself a hand. So, Karen, we have, did you notice the COVID kisses? The only kisses that we can give. I'm like a real hugger and a kisser, and this is like, so I decided to bring the kisses, and you had to count how many kisses were in the jar. Let me hear some numbers.
150.
Any others? 187. Any other numbers out there that you remember you wrote down?
985.
Well, the number of kisses were 220. And I picked 220 because it's 2020. So I gave you a little hint. And it's Diane Nagy. Is she still here? Come on over, Diane. And Diane, Diane, have you been here for almost every single one of our events? That's what I thought. So you get to just say a little something, who you are and what you are and what you do and who you love.
So I'm Diane Nagy. I work at Woodbridge Center. I'm a property management associate, and I'd like to thank my boss, Amy Bellasano, who's the senior general manager at the mall. She has supported me in bringing me to all of these events, and I am truly grateful. Thank you.
So with that, I would really like the committee to stand up and just acknowledge this wonderful, wonderful, real committee. Could you all just stand up? So let's give them a great big hand. Okay. These women, I say this every time, these women are the move. Shake. I think the mic is telling me you want to go home because it's dying. We have one more door prize. Here you go.
On November 5th, the Chamber is going to host a wine tasting at the Elks on Roway Avenue in Woodbridge. We've never done anything like this before. Nancy and I were trying to come up with something different, and this is what we came up with. So it's a Thursday night, and you're going to taste 5 different kinds of wines. We have also you're going to make a wine cork craft, and we're going to have some finger foods. It's going to be a fun night. We're going to have some raffles, all related to wine. So Nancy and I are working on it in conjunction with our Chamber Unplugged committee. So we have a 2 free, is it 2 in here, Nancy, or 1? 1 free ticket to the event, and we pulled it out, and it is Elsa, right? I don't have my glasses on. Elsa from Northfield Bank. So that'll be our next event that we'll have. Again, it's November 5th. We have some flyers on the way out. We'll send you the information. If it's something that you might be interested in, we're going to cut it off at 25% inside, socially distanced. We'll follow all the protocols. So if you are comfortable with doing something like that, please join us that night. Also, the flower arrangements are from our dearest friend Jim at Floral Expressions. They're beautiful, and we didn't really have a raffle for it, so you can fight for them. You can fight for them at your table, but they are from him. Jim is so generous to the Chamber, and we're always grateful for his beautiful arrangements. So please take them with you tonight. You choose at your table who takes it. Again, thank you for coming. Anne Marie, do you have anything else, or you're good? Okay, thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate your support. Network, have another cup of coffee, have a drink, get home safe, and stay healthy. Thank you.